They don't deserve these presents, my sister-in-law, Amanda, hissed, snatching the carefully wrapped gifts from my children's hands. My kids come from better breeding. These should be theirs. I stood frozen in my mother-in-law's elegant living room, watching in horror as my twins, Emily and James, both having just turned 8, clutched each other, tears streaming down their faces. The birthday party I'd spent weeks planning was crumbling before my eyes. My name is Olivia, and I never thought I'd see my children kicked out of their own birthday celebration. But Amanda, who had married my husband's brother just 2 years ago, had other plans. "Mom," Emily whispered, her voice trembling, "why is Aunt Amanda taking our presents?" Before I could answer, Amanda's shrill voice cut through the air. "Because your cousins, Sophia and Alexander, actually deserve nice things. Look at them. They are wearing Gucci. And what are you wearing? Target?" She sneered at their carefully chosen party outfits, ones I'd saved for 3 months to buy. The other parents at the party shifted uncomfortably, trying to shield their children from the scene unfolding. My mother-in-law, Margaret, sat in her favorite armchair, lips pursed but silent. She had always favored her younger son and his wife, but this was a new low. "Amanda," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me, "those gifts are for Emily and James. This is their birthday party." She laughed, a cold, sharp sound that made my skin crawl. "Please, Olivia. We all know you can barely afford rent in that tiny apartment of yours. My children deserve these gifts more. They'll actually appreciate the designer labels." My twins pressed closer to me, their small bodies trembling. James, always the more sensitive one, was trying hard not to cry. Emily's little fists were clenched, her inherited stubbornness showing through her tears. "Pack up your things," Amanda commanded, already stacking the presents near her own children. "This party is over. Sophia and Alexander will have much more fun with their friends anyway." "But Grandma," Emily pleaded, looking at Margaret, "you said we could have our party here. You promised." Margaret finally spoke, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Perhaps it's best if you have a smaller celebration at your apartment, dear. Somewhere more appropriate for your situation." I felt something snap inside me. 4 years of enduring Amanda's jabs about my single-parent status after my husband's death, of watching her spoil her children while belittling mine, of bearing Margaret's thinly veiled disapproval. It all came to a head. "We're leaving," I announced, gathering my children close. "But those presents stay here. They were given to Emily and James by their friends." Amanda's face twisted into an ugly smirk. "Try and stop me. This is Margaret's house, and she agrees with me. Don't you, Margaret?" My mother-in-law nodded, not even looking at my children's devastated faces. "Amanda's right, Olivia. Perhaps this is for the best." As I helped my twins gather their coats, Amanda's voice carried across the room. "Oh, and Olivia, don't expect any more invitations to family events. We need to maintain certain standards, you understand." I guided my crying children toward the door, their unopened presents remaining behind in Amanda's greedy hands. But just as we reached the entrance, an elderly voice rang out. "And just what do you think you're doing to my great-grandchildren?" Everyone turned to see Grandma Rose, Margaret's mother, standing in the doorway. At 92, she was still sharp as a tack and the family matriarch. Her eyes took in the scene, my tearful children, Amanda's smug face, the pile of relocated presents. "I was just coming to wish the twins a happy birthday," she said, her voice carrying the weight of decades of authority. "Would someone like to explain why they're leaving their own party?" Amanda's confidence wavered slightly. "Rose, we were just reorganizing things." The children. "Save it," Grandma Rose cut her off. "Margaret, Amanda, my study. Now." She turned to me and the twins, her stern expression softening. "Olivia, dear, please wait here with the children. This won't take long." As the 3 women disappeared into Grandma Rose's study, I held my twins close, wondering what could possibly make this situation right. Emily and James had already seen their family's true colors. How do you undo that kind of hurt? What I didn't know then was that Grandma Rose had already set wheels in motion that would change everything. The inheritance letter sitting in her desk drawer, freshly updated just that morning, was about to turn Amanda's perfect world upside down. But for now, I just held my children, whispering promises that everything would be okay, even as I wondered how we'd ever recover from this betrayal. The muffled voices from the study grew louder, and I knew this birthday party was just the beginning of something much bigger than a few stolen presents. Little did Amanda know, her actions today would cost her far more than she could imagine. The study door burst open and Amanda stormed out, her face flushed with anger. Margaret followed, looking unusually pale. Grandma Rose emerged last, her expression stern but satisfied. "Emily, James," Grandma Rose called, "come here, my darlings." My twins approached cautiously, still shaken from earlier events. "Your party isn't over. In fact, it's moving to my house. The big one by the lake. Everyone's invited except—" She paused, looking pointedly at Amanda. "Those who don't understand the meaning of family." Amanda's mouth fell open. "But Rose, you can't." "I can and I will," Grandma Rose cut her off. "The cars are already on their way to transport the guests. Margaret, help gather the presents, the ones that actually belong to Emily and James." I watched in amazement as the power dynamic shifted. Amanda stood frozen, her designer dress suddenly looking cheap against her petty behavior. Her own children, Sophia and Alexander, looked confused as the other kids excitedly gathered their things for the move to Grandma's lake house. "But what about my children?" Amanda demanded. They deserve a mother who teaches them kindness," Grandma Rose interrupted. "Until that happens, perhaps it's best if you all take some time to reflect on your behavior." As we drove to the lake house, Emily and James's spirits began to lift. Grandma Rose's estate was magnificent, a sprawling property with manicured gardens and a private beach. It was a place they had only visited twice before, as Amanda usually monopolized family gatherings there. The party that followed was everything my twins deserved. Somehow, Grandma Rose had arranged for a professional cake decorator to arrive, creating a masterpiece that put Amanda's original store-bought cake to shame. Games were organized on the lawn, and every child got a turn on the paddle boats. "Mom," James whispered during a quiet moment, "why does Aunt Amanda hate us so much?" My heart ached at his question. "She doesn't hate you, sweetheart. Some people just forget what really matters in life. Money," Emily chimed in, wise beyond her years. "That's all she cares about." Before I could respond, Grandma Rose appeared beside us. "You're quite right, Emily, and sometimes people who only care about money end up losing something far more valuable." She gave me a meaningful look before turning to address all the party guests. "Before we cut the cake, I have an announcement to make." The children gathered around, faces sticky with ice cream and excitement. Even the other parents seemed intrigued. "Today, I witnessed something that broke my heart," Grandma Rose began. "I saw members of my own family trying to hurt these two precious children on their birthday. But I also saw something beautiful. I saw Emily and James show grace and dignity far beyond their years." She paused, her eyes sweeping the crowd. "That's why I've made a decision. The lake house, this entire estate, will be put in trust for Emily and James." Gasps rippled through the gathering. One of the other mothers dropped her punch glass. "When they turn 21, this property, along with the majority of my estate, will belong to them. Because they understand what truly matters, and it's not designer labels or social status." Tears welled in my eyes. Emily and James looked stunned, too young to fully grasp the magnitude of what their great-grandmother had just done. My phone buzzed frantically, messages from Amanda, then Margaret, all demanding explanations. I silenced it without reading them. "There's more," Grandma Rose continued. "Starting immediately, this house will be managed by Olivia on behalf of the children." Which means, she smiled warmly at my twins, "you can visit any time you want." Amanda chose that moment to appear, having obviously ignored the earlier dismissal. She stormed across the lawn, her face contorted with rage. "You can't do this," she screeched. "What about my children? What about their inheritance?" Grandma Rose turned to face her, calm but immovable. "Your children will receive exactly what they deserve, a lesson in humility, courtesy of their mother's actions." The party guests watched in uncomfortable silence as Amanda's composure crumbled completely. "This isn't fair. We're family too," she shrieked. "Family?" Grandma Rose's voice carried across the lawn. "Family doesn't steal presents from children. Family doesn't mock someone's clothes or their living situation. Family protects each other, loves each other, builds each other up." She turned to my twins, who were watching the scene with wide eyes. "Emily, James, you and your mother have shown more grace and dignity today than Amanda has shown in her entire life. That's worth more than all the designer clothes in the world." Amanda stood there, mascara running down her face, as the reality of what she'd lost began to sink in, not just the inheritance, but the respect of everyone watching. Her own children looked embarrassed, finally seeing their mother clearly. As she fled the party, her expensive heels sinking into the manicured lawn, I heard Emily whisper to her brother, "This is better than any present, isn't it?" James nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. Way better than what Aunt Amanda tried to steal. The party continued into the evening, with Grandma Rose orchestrating everything perfectly. As I watched my children laugh and play, finally free from Amanda's constant belittling, I realized this birthday had given them something priceless. The knowledge that they were worthy, valued, and loved, designer labels or not. But this wasn't the end of the story. Amanda's reaction to losing her expected inheritance was about to set off a chain of events that would expose even darker family secrets. The aftermath of the birthday party hit our family like a hurricane. Amanda, unable to accept her loss of inheritance, launched a vicious campaign against us. She began spreading rumors that I had manipulated Grandma Rose, claiming I'd somehow coerced her into changing her will. But what Amanda didn't know was that Grandma Rose had documented everything. She'd been watching, waiting, collecting evidence of Amanda's behavior for years. 3 days after the party, we all received an email from Grandma Rose's lawyer. Attached was a video compilation, dozens of security camera clips showing Amanda's treatment of my children over the years. Clips of her mocking their clothes when she thought no one was watching, of her telling her own children not to play with those poor cousins, of her deliberately excluding them from family photos. I installed those cameras after I noticed things going missing from my house. Grandma Rose explained during Sunday tea. I never expected to capture such cruelty instead of theft. The most standing clip was from just before the birthday party. Amanda and Margaret in the kitchen, plotting to hijack the celebration. "Once we get those presents, we'll have proof they're accepting handouts." Amanda's voice rang clear through the security footage. "Then we can convince Rose they're not fit to inherit anything." Margaret's response was equally shocking. "It's for the best. That whole branch of the family is an embarrassment." When that video circulated through the family group chat, the silence was deafening. Then the messages started pouring in. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all expressing their horror at Amanda and Margaret's behavior. But Amanda wasn't done. She showed up at my apartment one evening, her expensive car blocking my parking spot. "You think you've won," she spat as I walked my children inside. "I've hired a lawyer. We'll prove Rose isn't competent to make these decisions." I turned to face her, making sure Emily and James were safely inside. "The only thing you'll prove is how low you're willing to sink." Her face twisted with rage. "At least I'm not living off my dead husband's insurance money." That's when another voice cut through the tension. "Actually, you're not living off anything anymore." We both turned to see Grandma Rose emerging from her car, her driver holding the door. Even at 92, she knew how to make an entrance. "Amanda, dear," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "I just had a fascinating conversation with your husband about your shopping habits. Apparently, you've been using his business account to fund your designer wardrobe. He's quite upset about it." Amanda's face went pale. "You did it?" "Oh, but I did. Family matters after all." Grandma Rose smiled. "He's freezing your accounts as we speak. Something about federal tax implications." I watched as Amanda crumpled, her designer handbag suddenly weighing heavy on her arm. All her carefully constructed superiority, built on money she'd been stealing from her own husband, was falling apart. "You can either leave my grandchildren alone," Grandma Rose continued, "or I can keep pulling threads until there's nothing left of your designer life. Your choice." Amanda fled to her car, engine roaring as she peeled out of the parking lot. It was the last time we saw her at my apartment. The following weeks brought more changes. Margaret, finally facing consequences for her enabling behavior, was removed from the family trust's board of directors. Amanda's husband filed for divorce after discovering the extent of her financial deception. And my children, my beautiful resilient twins, began to flourish without the constant shadow of their aunt's cruelty. Emily and James insisted on having their next playdate at the lake house. As I watched them run through the gardens with their friends, wearing clothes they picked out themselves from Target, I felt a profound sense of peace. "They're going to be just fine," Grandma Rose said, joining me on the patio. "They've learned what really matters." "Thank you," I said, turning to her. not just for the inheritance, but for standing up for them. She patted my hand. My dear, they earned it. Not through designer labels or social climbing, but through the strength of their character, just like their mother. That Christmas, we'd hosted the family gathering at the lake house. Amanda and Margaret weren't there, having chosen to spend the holiday at some exclusive resort. But the rest of the family came, bringing warmth, laughter, and presents wrapped in love rather than expectations. As I watched Emily and James tear into their gifts, wearing holiday sweaters from Target and grins that could light up the room, I realized that Grandma Rose had given them something far more valuable than an inheritance. She had given them the knowledge that their worth wasn't measured in designer labels or social status, but in the kindness they showed others and the love they carried in their hearts. And that was a gift that no one, not even Amanda, could ever take away.